Welcome to tonight's Eco Chat. Tonight, just in time for the holiday season, we are going to be talking about shopping. I was excited to do this one because I had a lot of questions myself about what's the most eco-friendly way to shop. And I've always had lots of questions about, is it better to shop locally or online? What about sales tax? What about, there's all these just different factors that I never looked up. So this kind of forced me to actually get the answers that I was looking for. And I'm joined by Hayley. Hayley is Hayley is an excellent thrifter, DIYer, restorer of old things, appreciator of old things. So she's the perfect person for this eco chat.
Why, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm honored to be here.
Yes. And so many great ideas about just having a lot of style, a lot of really great, you're a great gift giver, very thoughtful, but very intentional about the choices that you make in shopping. And that's kind of the direction we're wanting to head. Again, a disclaimer for most of the eco chats is that living more sustainably is mostly a position of privilege. So just always like to have that reminder at the top that these aren't necessarily accessible ideas for everybody. And not everybody can be so intentional about the choices that they make and where they're spending their money because they just don't have that many choices. And I guess that's a pretty big factor in some of these things too, is like income level, location, family situation. Obviously, if you have kids, you're going to have to make really different decisions than if you're just on your own or just with your cat or your partner. So I just started with some of my initial questions, but let me ask you first, like what kind of got you started? I feel like I didn't really discover thrift stores until like college, but my parents were very frugal. And I definitely inherited all their frugality, every last bit. And so I'm very grateful for that because I feel like we didn't ever spend money when I was growing up. Like we didn't go out to eat. We didn't really go on vacations. I weren't to family. We didn't buy stuff. I had all hand-me-downs.
Yeah.
And that was fine. Like I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. My sister had a total opposite response to that kind of childhood, and she wants to buy all of the things and have everything be brand new. So I'm just grateful that whatever I got from my parents, I've never really been a big shopper. I don't really like spending money. It's very rare I buy anything new. And so where do you think that comes from, or where did that start with you?
I think it probably started, I'm relatively new to thrifting, like on the grand scale of things. I didn't grow up thrifting because I lived in a really small town, only about 300 people. We didn't have a restaurant, much less a thrift store. So I moved to the big city, Oklahoma City, about 15 years ago-ish. And even then, because I had never been to a thrift store, I wasn't sure what to expect. It didn't occur to me for a long time to go check one out. But somewhere along the way, maybe about 5-6 years ago, I just up and decided on my birthday, actually, to spend some time at a thrift store and treat it like a tiny adventure. There's a Goodwill not far from my house, and I at the time was really stressed about something or other, and so my gift to myself was to not make any plans for my birthday, and that was very freeing. And for whatever reason, I just decided to go check out the Goodwill, and that very first day, I found so many cute little things. Like I'm a patient person by nature. And so it doesn't bother me to, dig for the fun treasures and things. And I think seeing it as kind of like a grown-up Easter egg hunt brings a lot of joy to that experience. And especially for someone who maybe doesn't get to exercise their patience often. I know it's helped me to be more patient too, because you can't always find exactly what you're looking for, but you might find something better than what you're looking for. In terms of like my family history, my mom is definitely not a thrifter. She's mildly horrified that I get so much of my wardrobe from the thrift store or from Poshmark, which is interesting since her mother grew up during the Depression, you know, just like you're talking about, like familial trends in shopping and like how you approach spending money. You would think that someone whose parents grew up in the Depression would be more frugal as well, but kind of like, sounds like your sister like just had a pretty wide divergence from what her parents did. She, I don't know if she has bought anything used actually. I think she has this sense that used things are dirty, or they've been donated because they're not any good anymore. And I think people who are like new to thrifting really are surprised by how many quality items are there that look brand new. I've gotten so many things brand new.
Yeah, I mean, I guess is there sort of like I guess our society is very like status obsessed.
Yes.
So a sign of status is like having certain brands or being on trend, or certain like signals. Oh, I know that person has a lot of money because of what they're wearing or the car they're driving or whatever. And so some people maybe are more like, so then if you don't have that, then there's like some kind of shame around that maybe, that maybe some people are for whatever reasons more susceptible to that.
Yeah, or maybe more self-conscious about having grown up in a way where you didn't have it, so you sort of are unconsciously driven to signal like, I've made it, I'm successful now. Yeah, I find those kinds of dynamics really interesting. Because I grew up in a small town, like we didn't have access to a mall, obviously. And when I was growing up, that was, you know, before the big internet hype. And so there wasn't a lot of online shopping. And so like I've never been into, you know, fancy bags like Louis Vuitton bags, or, you know, a fancy car, or, you know, when we were younger and the low tracksuit with Juicy across it. That was, I never aspired to that. And I think part of why I'm not discouraged about thrifting is I'm not looking for those kinds of things. You know, I'm looking for what's comfortable, what is unique, things that will hold up really well, like over time as I use them.
But I think looking at like people's shopping trends or whatever, there are just some slight just way of looking at things differently, and just like thinking about this decision that I'm making about where I'm getting this, what I'm getting, how I'm getting it. Just to have a little bit more thought or pause about, or just like a little bit of research maybe, to put into that, I think could make a big difference, because our trends so far are not sustainable in the sense of we can't really keep this up, basically.
Right.
So my first question was about online shopping, because I had heard that it was more eco-friendly to do online shopping, but that doesn't feel right. But I was willing to be wrong about that. Like when my partner and I had an issue with the dishwashing because hand washing, because it's just the two of us. So hand washing felt like it was going to save more water or use
Right.
less water.
Yeah.
But once we listened to a Stuff You Should Know episode about dishwashing, even if you only have your dishwasher like half full, still using less water than when you hand wash.
I have heard that too. There's a really interesting episode on a podcast that I like called Revisionist History. Malcolm Gladwell hosts it, and they did an episode all about laundry detergent. And kind of counterintuitively, I feel like right now, soap alternatives like soap nuts or like laundry sheets are gaining in popularity. And Malcolm Gladwell talks about all of the scientific resources that a company like Tide has to make a product that is concentrated, so it takes a less space. If they do keep the bottle the same size, you get more bang for your buck, so you don't have to repurchase a plastic jug as often. They use a ton of wind power. And I can't remember what else. I know for sure that they had done extensive testing to figure out how best to clean clothes in cold water, which of course saves a ton of electricity. And he makes a really compelling argument that the sort of counterintuitive sense of, I'd rather buy these soap alternatives or, something that feels a little like more crunchy or granola, that if you break down the resources and the production costs in terms of energy, that, that formula might not come out quite like you think it would. I feel like sometimes people get intimidated when they're shopping, either, especially at a store like Target, where everything is brand new. And there's so much fun marketing around, beauty products and wellness products. And I think some people, when they try to be more sustainable, they go a little too hard sometimes. And then they get discouraged that this shampoo bar dried out my hair. I guess shampoo bars aren't for me, and I should have never have tried that or whatever. Or because I'm not using a shampoo bar anymore because I didn't like it, I'm not good at sustainability. I feel like there's a willingness to fail is really important when folks are trying to be more sustainable.
Yes. So that's a big focus of these eco chats. Is not only what are you doing to be a little more sustainable, but we always have a little section of what didn't work.
Oh my gosh.
What have you tried, but you found this is not for me? For example, the worm composting, which I try to now pawn off my worm compost to someone else because
I'm very intrigued.
Too much for me.
I tried using some shampoo and conditioner from Resupply. I like the smell a lot, but I think over time it started to dry out my hair a little bit in a way that was, noticeable to me. And so instead of sticking with something that's not going to work well for me or that I'll be annoyed by or whatever, it's another instance of okay, well, what's the next best thing I can do? And so now I know which stores carry the jumbo size bottle of shampoo and conditioner in the brand that my hair likes the best. And so I'll just be mindful about trying to get the largest size so that there's a little bit less plastic waste rather than getting, how some of them have little 10 or 12 ounce bottles or something like that. Because that's another way that people can be mindful, and is a really easy habit to get into, is just thinking about packaging and how you can be more efficient with packaging. Not to mention that most of the time bulk goods are cheaper. So for folks on a budget, that kind of has a little double whammy of positive benefits. That's something that you can focus on instead of, gosh, this is hard, or gosh, I have to be perfect, or I don't know what to do in X situation.
Yeah, we're definitely trying to move away from perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And just sort of what are the things that like matter most to you?
Yeah.
And what are you able to do? What small changes could you make that work for your life, whether
For
you have
sure.
kids or, what you're, maybe you like, I actually, now that you say that, it's kind of funny because I love stuff. Like
Yeah.
I am a maximalist.
I mean, stuff is fun, like.
I love stuff. I cannot get rid of anything. Like I have to imagine a elaborate scenario in my head of how someone else is going to use this thing and
Yes.
like need it more than I do.
Yeah.
I'll play that out in my head to like let it go. But so I do love stuff. I
Yeah.
love you say that about your mama.
Uh-huh.
My next door neighbor and her sister
Mm-hmm.
are literally go to the Goodwill every day.
Oh,
Every time I
wow.
go to the Goodwill, it just happened literally Monday. I pulled into the parking lot and pulled in. No, I was like, oh, my
Yep.
next door neighbor's here.
Yeah.
Because same thing, it gets them out. Like,
Yeah.
her sister's widowed.
Oh, so
This is the
sorry.
only time she gets out. Like, this is the thing they
Oh,
do.
yeah. Yeah.
But it's not creating waste.
Exactly. Because
You
it's
can do
all
all those things and get
yeah.
all the benefits of like that novelty. And
Yeah.
we'll get into a little bit about like why shopping feels so good.
Yeah.
But like
Dopamine,
how can you
baby.
scratch that out, that itch without creating waste?
Yes.
So, okay, so I was willing after a little talking to myself to be wrong about the online shopping.
Yes. I
Just
want to hear about it.
Because like I went to lunch at a friend's the other day, and when I arrived, there was a package there, and I
Oh,
took it into her, and then I walked out at like an hour later, and there were more packages there, and I was like, how could this possibly be more efficient?
yes. Because didn't you
And
tell me that they were from the same retailer? Yeah.
yes. Okay, so I got my answer. So that study that showed that it was more eco-friendly is from MIT from 2013.
Okay.
So the landscape of online shopping has completely
Yes.
changed since 2013.
Absolutely. And just the
And
sheer volume of it after COVID, that was
yeah,
such a huge
yes,
upshot for online
absolutely.
retailers.
So the main thing that's changed is the 2-day or even instant delivery option.
Mm,
So that is what's made it completely like starting from the beginning, it is like the idea is more efficient. So you are like, if you're ordering online, it is shipping directly from the warehouse to the consumer,
yeah.
rather than it being shipped to a brick and mortar store and then you're making a round trip to go
Right.
get the
Right.
thing. But when you throw in like 2-day delivery
Mm-hmm.
or instant delivery, those companies no longer are making those shipping decisions based on like what's most efficient or cheapest. It's like what's
Right.
fastest. So
Yeah.
they're going to be filling up their trucks. Like they're not going to they're not going to be full. It's not going to be
Mhm.
efficient. So like that real retailer that came within like a couple of hours to my friend's house,
Yeah.
like they must have made different orders,
Uh-huh.
like it wasn't the same order or whatever,
Sure.
or they wanted it quicker so that like it wasn't, they weren't able to be on the same truck in the same
Uh-huh.
delivery or
Uh-huh.
whatever. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
And then also when you bring in that fast delivery, you also then increase air delivery or air shipping, which is a huge, obviously,
Oh,
contributor to
yeah.
So, I mean, the thing is that if you are, I mean, again, I think probably most people now order most of their stuff on Amazon.
Mhm.
So if you are still going to do that, which this depends on your location also.
Right. Yeah.
So if you're rural, if you there's nothing at your price point or local or whatever
Yeah.
that's
If
going
you
to
have
be near
mobility
you.
issues and can't go to a physical store, yeah.
Yes. Additionally, I mean, you do consider like the local economic impact of
Yeah.
shopping local. Studies clearly show local businesses put way more back into the local economy than chains.
Yeah.
So there's all those considerations. But if you are going to order from Amazon, um, so they just suggest that you do the combined shipment options.
Yeah.
So like if you go on there, you can like select that you want those to be all in the same shipment, and that means they'll arrive slower,
Mhm.
but that will produce less packaging and then allows them to make the most efficient delivery choices.
I have absolutely used that option before, 'cause I don't order a lot from Amazon 'cause I like the experience of, like,
Mm-hmm.
going to Target and looking at, which bell pepper looks best to me, I find that sort of quaint and fun, which is super nerdy, but, um, so I don't do, like, meal deliveries or grocery deliveries, but I have a lot of friends who are, busy moms. They don't have the time, or
Mm-hmm.
they have the time, but they don't want to take two kiddos under 3 to a store, which, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that makes absolute sense. Um, so I don't order from Amazon very often, but when I do, and something that doesn't cost any money that someone who is trying to be more sustainable can think about is, of course, saving all of like the bubble wrap or the packing peanuts. And even if you don't use them, there are so many buy local groups, like really everywhere across the country. But even in Oklahoma City, we have like a half dozen, I think. Um, and people are always looking for things, to help them move to a new place. I've had people pick up boxes all the time. Like when we would volunteer at the library and we would, all those like oddball shaped boxes, I would stuff those in my trunk like a lunatic. But people would come pick them up from the porch and were pleased as punch to have them. You can donate, and I've done this before, styrofoam packing peanuts to like a local pack and ship store, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
reuse them and be super psyched about it because it's
Yeah, we have one
less
in Norman.
overhead for a
Take them
local
too.
business. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, so packaging is another issue.
Mhm.
I think the going for combined shipments like
Mhm.
speaks to your patience issue, right? Like
Yeah,
part of what's fueling this major impact is like the convenience factor.
for sure.
Well, consumers have just gotten so used to the idea that they should have free shipping, fast shipping, and that their things should arrive either immediately or within 2 days. Like that's just
Yeah,
like the expectation, which does hurt regular retailers or like local retailers, like because consumers expect that, they're going to opt for that over like,
sure.
oh, I have to pay $4 for shipping and it's going to take 6 days or whatever.
Mhm.
So I think there's again this being a little more intentional,
Yeah.
like, and just a little more patient, which is probably something that we could all benefit from. And then like if I apparently order so infrequently that from Amazon that I got locked out of my account and now I have to create a new account or something. Anyways, and actually that I only found out about that because of the music. But typically I would like save up like, oh, I have these things that I'm
Yeah.
gonna get, and then I'll just get them all at one time.
Yeah. Same
Um,
here. It helps me decide if I really need something.
yes.
Or like, for example, my mom's is always on me about wanting a Christmas list like in August or September. And so sometimes those things that like, oh, that'd be nice to have this, but I don't really need it right now. You know, I can put it on my Christmas list and get it later, and not have to give into that impulse of like, oh, but I want it right now. Because that's so human, right? To just be like, and especially since now, I mean, we live in a stressful time, in a high achieving country that's like very driven to do, go. And so it seems really natural that like, of course, we would be wired to think, yes, right now, that sounds great. And it like, how yummy and easy is it to just go add to cart, add to cart? Like it's
Yeah, I
it's
think that's
so
something we were
easy.
talking about too, that like,
Yeah.
okay, even if let's say it is more efficient, the idea that you are just like going straight from the warehouse to your
Yeah.
house or whatever, just like the convenience and ease of that whole process makes
Mm-hmm.
people buy more things.
Well, and especially with like Amazon recommendations, and I feel like a lot of people, because of the fast shipping and the cheap prices on Amazon, which that's a whole nother
That's a whole
thing.
other, yeah.
I could, oh, that you, when you go thrifting, like you really see trends of what brands are constantly at the thrift store, because they're hyper trendy or because they didn't hold up well. And you see a lot of the same brands over and over and over, which is interesting to me from like a sociological nerd standpoint. But anyway, I know that some folks, like at my office again, for example, they decide they want a new dress and they'll buy, you know, 5 or 6 different styles from Amazon, knowing and planning to return some, at least one. And which is just, you know, double the shipping and double the
Yes.
energy costs and the human cost of it. Which it is nice that like you can go to Whole Foods, you know, and walk it over, so it doesn't have to be, and then they like more efficiently pack multiple returns in one box. But it, having that tacit permission to just buy a lot just because, or because like, especially for women's bodies are so different from each other that you really do have to try stuff on sometimes. That's something else that, well, I used to like about the thrift store. Goodwill doesn't have dressing rooms now. um, but I know some people really need to try certain items of clothing on. Like I can't just buy a pair of jeans. I have to try it on because everybody comes in different shapes and sizes, and so do jeans apparently.
So shopping online leads to 5 times more returned products, which
Wow.
is another change like from 2013. Like
Yeah.
the expectation for consumers is also that they will be able to have easy free returns. And so
Sure.
what it does, like the whole like thing about returns is like creating a huge environmental
Yeah.
impact.
Well,
Uh,
and
and you mentioned packaging earlier.
yeah.
So packaging contributes to I mean, the numbers that I found were really, really wild about
Yeah.
the waste and pollution that creates.
I can imagine just the physical bulk of it, you know,
3
not,
billion trees are pulled yearly to produce
oh,
241 million tons of shipping.
oh,
Although I was reading about the cardboard shortage because I remember that happened a little while ago.
really? I don't think I heard
And
anything about this. What, tell me more about it.
because of the whole COVID thing and everybody was ordering everything, there was a cardboard shortage. And
Really?
so I guess that created like a major issue like in the cardboard industry. And
Wow.
and then what I was reading, what's now happening is that like Amazon, for example, has started using more things are coming in plastic envelopes.
Oh,
So then again, you have more plastic
yeah.
packaging, and not even 14% of that is recycled.
Oh, gosh.
Um, And then, I mean, like, there's just like a whole lot of other issues. Like when you are like the whole cheap goods thing is
Yeah,
maybe needs to be its own episode that I really
right.
want to dig more into because like so much of our stuff, I mean, there's like an economic issue, obviously. There's an
Mhm.
issue with like American jobs. So, I mean, it's just like a question of, I mean, there's just so many factors
Yeah.
to like, you're looking at what are the environmental, like if most of our stuff is coming from, let's say, China,
Mhm.
like what are the conditions that all of those products that you're using are being made? And what's
Right.
the environmental impact of that? And then you're looking at like what is this thing I found? The statistic I found that was so insane. Um, oh, it was so huge that I wasn't sure if it was true. So I just put the transport of goods across the world is responsible for a huge portion of CO2 emissions generated from
I mean, I would
e-commerce.
believe it. Absolutely. What's
Um,
frustrating is that I've wished for this multiple times. Like, why isn't there a filter on Amazon? You know, you can filter for color and brand and price and reviews. Like, I wish there was a little checkbox for like made in the US where you could at least know that the shipping costs aren't coming from like halfway around the globe, and or that, you know, things like the spatula turner would hopefully not pass FDA scrutiny.
yes, I made that mistake one time. I ordered earring backs because I love earrings and I'm always losing
Yeah.
the backs or whatever. And that's something
Who
I can't
who doesn't lose the backs?
I can't where do I buy that? Like
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out where to buy these. So I did order them from Amazon and apparently they were coming from China. So like after like 6 months or something like that, it was like still on the boat or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
And then I like it eventually I think they just like were like we don't know what happened to this. I don't know if it sunk, the boat sunk or something. I don't know. Anyways, I was like, oh, I did not anticipate that this was going to be
Yes.
these earring backs were going to make such a journey
Right.
just
Oh
to
my
come
gosh.
here. So
That's
anyway, so
that's making me
the
think of Mama again. She's omnipresent. Because when I was helping her like you know, condense some of her belongings and reorganize in preparation for her move, there were like 2 boxes of earring backs. Like, oh, I wish I could have given you Mama's earring backs. Like,
oh
that's
well,
something I
then
try to
they also
be.
sent you 8 million. So I did
Yes,
package them
exactly.
up in a little like I used, of course, reused a little like the little tiny bags or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and like did it put them on free cycle.
Nice. I that is one thing I've been trying to do more of, instead of going out and buying, is to, especially for things like tools or specialty cookware or something. I've been asking coworkers and friends, hey, do you have such and such? Can I borrow it? And I feel like that's like everyone's always very happy to lend it to me, but I feel like myself included, like there's some like, I don't know if it's embarrassment or just shyness about like sharing resources like that. But I'm trying to be less self-conscious about that, so that I don't have to have more stuff and find a place to store it, which I live in a historic home. You know, there's no storage in here. So that's been something that I've been trying to, like, if I hear someone talk about a need at work, I'm like, oh, you can borrow mine. Or, yeah, I'm trying to not feed into that self consciousness of like, oh, I don't want to bother anybody, or like, oh, I feel silly for wanting to borrow. What was it? I borrowed a chisel from someone at work the other day because I needed to split some paving stones in my backyard, and I didn't want to buy a chisel just for that one little project. And like I said, they were so pleased to lend it to me.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, sharing resources, because we have to change our culture
Mm-hmm.
and conversation about this stuff. Cause like I love that like your coworker felt like she could say, oh yeah, I got this outfit from
Yeah.
so and so down the hall or whatever, because I
Yeah.
feel, and I try to do that at work too. And I was really thrilled um, that some of the other ladies were like, oh yeah, I get all my stuff at thrift stores. Like there
Yay.
is some kind of, especially like in certain circles or professional settings or
Mhm.
something like that, that like to be a respectable adult,
Yes.
you should be like, you shouldn't have secondhand
Yeah,
things.
that you spend money. That's what adults do. Yeah.
But we should all have, you're right, that we should all have our own everything and
Mhm.
keep it in our garages instead of actually being able to put our cars in the garage. Um, and that's like a point of pride. And I think you're right. We have to get
Yeah.
more like sharing resources is a great way to put it.
Even the library, actually, we just love libraries, don't we? They're so magical. Um, I didn't know this. I don't know if it's a new program or if I just like missed the boat when it started out. In the spring, the Metro Library System had these like gardening kits that you could check out, just like a book, and it came with like a little spade and a little like hand rake, and with the same idea of like 20 people don't need to buy 20 trowels. Like we can just share. And
Mhm.
I love when libraries, especially, or any kind of like community center, thinks flexibly like that. Like I had heard of another library somewhere else that has baking sheets to check out, like in
Hmm.
all the different like wacky shapes, or like cookie cutter sets in very specific themes that you could check those out. Like I don't know. There's something really neat about a community kind of trying to look after itself like that. Like I love that sentiment behind like let's provide for a lot of people
Hmm.
in a way that's free, which is also amazing.
So yeah, I think it's understandable that like getting stuff or buying stuff feels
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
Um, so a couple of like psychological or emotional issues like that, the lower the cost, the lower the pain and the lower the pain
Yeah.
expectations of the item. So if we have low expectations, we don't need to like absolutely love an item
Mm-hmm.
to convince ourselves to buy it. So it's that like low cost, low reward thing going on,
Yeah.
even if the pleasure's fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the brain is very wired to respond to marketing strategies of like
Oh
limited
gosh.
time offers or sales.
Yeah.
So Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Prime Day are huge because you feel like this is what you can't pass up this great deal. This is
Yeah,
like a last
absolutely.
chance marketing that makes us feel like we have to buy this now or we're going to lose
Yeah.
this forever.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like down to the wire adrenaline gives our brains kind of a thrill and
That
we feel
makes
like a
total sense.
rush.
Yeah.
So you see these tactics a lot on like TikTok Shop.
Sure.
Um, I've heard people like so many people talk about like how much they're buying off of Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like that, like definitely like a then you
Mm-hmm.
get like an adrenaline rush,
Yeah.
there's a dopamine boost. Um, and along with that dopamine boost, like it makes you feel like you're in control. So like if you're sad or anxious,
Oh yeah.
feeling out of control, shopping is like a way to kind of alleviate or put off those bad feelings.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, also our brains love novelty, like something
Mhm.
new that can kind of distract us. So
Mhm.
it's understandable that we do love shopping, that it's become kind of like, you say retail therapy, like,
Yeah.
but there are kind of ways we can do that without having to create more waste or fuel this kind of never ending um, consumerism that's just like where more and more things are just like keep being created with
Right.
a huge environmental cost.
Yeah.
So I know so I used to do clothing swaps and they were the best. I belonged
Oh, yeah.
to a clothing swap group. So like it was like 500 people on Facebook and like every so often like somebody
Wow.
would be willing to host. We'd reserve a room at the library and everybody would come and just have so many clothes.
How cool.
So that was great. And then of course, we're big thrifters.
Yes.
And then you've done like online stuff. Like what do you do? Like Poshmark and
I love Poshmark. It's great for brands that you know what size you are in, because you can only return items if they were like misadvertised by the seller. So you are kind of forced to keep it. There is that, like you were saying earlier, that sense of commitment. So it makes you hesitate a little bit more of like, well, if it doesn't fit, like I can't take it back, maybe I should rethink this. But if you know your size in particular brands, it's so great. It has absolutely enabled me. As you know, one of my weaknesses, jigsaw puzzles. And I've bought so many jigsaw puzzles from Posh. But I forgive myself for that because I'm not trying to be perfect. It's okay that I have a silly little vice. But again, like, what's the next best thing? Get them secondhand. And so I get that. Home items. The entire outfit I'm wearing right now actually is all from Posh. This top, the trousers I'm wearing, the shoes I'm wearing, all came from Posh. And that's also great for folks who are on a more limited budget. And then too, there's you kind of get a little bit of that dopamine fixation because you can bid on items. You don't have to immediately pay the price that the seller is asking. So it can be kind of fun, and there's like a little bit of gamesmanship there, if that's something you enjoy. It can really feel like a win if you if you get something for an even better price than what's listed. I know folks who have done what's that service where like you put a bunch of clothes into a bag and mail it off, and then they like consign it for you.
ThredUp?
Yeah, ThredUp. Yeah. I have not personally bought anything from there, but I know several people who've put their clothes in. We have 2 local places. I mean, of course, the thrift stores, but there's 2 locations of a place called Clothes Mentor that I really like, especially for like work professional stuff. It's not quite consignment because it's not as expensive. But it's a little bit higher. It has higher standards for quality. In terms,
is that like upscale, cheapskate, or is that a different?
So, Uptown Cheapskate makes me feel like an old lady because things in there are pretty trendy and like, crop tops.
Well, I think I just said the name wrong, so clearly I'm like not the right.
Yeah, I've been in once or twice and I immediately felt so old and uncool. But Clothes Mentor is like, it has trendy things, but they also do a lot of like classic, more mature brands, if you will. So like Loft and Taylor. And like I said, they're particular about the quality of the garments that they take. So, thrift stores, sometimes a lot of the clothing can have that pilling. And if you are, looking for an outfit for a job interview, or like you want to look extra cute for a date you're about to go on, I really like the 2 locations of Clothes Mentor. And I think it's an especially great step for someone who like kind of wants to be sustainable, but is really intimidated by these huge thrift stores that you have to dig. You don't have to necessarily dig nearly as much at Clothes Mentor. And they have dressing rooms. So it's also a lot more efficient time-wise in that you can try on a ton of different styles and garments in your size in one place and not have to go to like 14 different stores at the mall or whatever. So I really like shopping there. I get lots of things from my work clothes there. And bonus, they are really great about if they have things that don't sell after a certain time period, or let's say you drop off a bunch of clothes and maybe some of the styles are outdated or it's off season and they don't want to purchase it from you, they give you the option of either coming back and getting those rejected items back for, to keep for yourself, or you can opt to let them keep it. And they partner with local organizations, which I love that they like go above and beyond about that. Like Clothes Mentor is not just an Oklahoma City chain, like there are places in Dallas and yada, yada, but these individual store locations find hyper local charities to work with. So the Clothes Mentor down on 240, they donate to a place called I think it's called Jordan's Crossing or Jordan's Hope.
Yeah.
And that is like a women's shelter rehabilitation facility, from what I understand. Do what?
It's also on 240, so that's super.
Oh, okay, perfect. And then the one in Edmond, they donate to the Edmond Hope Center. So again, like that sense of hyper local, good, stacking good upon good upon good. Like you're shopping secondhand, you're giving your clothes another life, and you're helping out your local community. And it's not like, I really just appreciate that they don't, just A, trash it, of course, but B, don't just like ship it to Goodwill. And I feel like you should never like be ashamed of donating to Goodwill or shopping at Goodwill in terms of like ethics. I know like some of my coworkers have been kind of surprised that like, oh, you donate to Goodwill because it's a for-profit business, but they give jobs to folks in the community who would otherwise have a hard time getting them. They're great for people who don't have anything on their resume and just need a little something to get them started. So by no means do I think that anyone should like feel bad about donating to Goodwill, but I love that kind of like what you're saying, like that mindfulness of, yes, I could donate them to Goodwill. And, if I'm a super busy person and I don't have time to think about 3 different charities to make 3 different drop-offs, that's a great outlet for someone like that. But Clothes Mentor, I just really appreciate that like this larger chain is thinking hyper local and not necessarily donating it to like they're finding an option that is both sustainable and charitable, whereas Goodwill is sustainable and they do good for the community in terms of, like I said, jobs and providing that secondhand marketplace. But the charitable aspect is really neat, I think, about Clothes Mentor. Let's see. I mean, there are just so many. And even then, like we have so many local local thrift stores that aren't Goodwill. Like you found my blazer that I still use when I testify in hearings at that one local thrift store. It was amazing.
And that's where I got my puzzle that I'm doing right now. That same
Oh,
store.
really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yay. There's it's fun too. Like it's a little adventure because I feel like every thrift store has like a different vibe, and so you kind of learn a little bit about your community in those ways, which is really fun.
Yeah. And then like if I'm looking, it's like fun because I like to manifest. If there's something that I'm looking for, such as when it just occurred to me after like 10 years of women wearing leggings as pants, I was like, maybe I could wear leggings as pants. And so I was like, sort of put that out there. And then like a week later, like I stumbled upon a perfect pair. There was $1.29. Monday Madness. But if you are looking for something really specific and you like want it, like, I tend to go to like eBay, but I think that's
for sure
because I don't know how to shop. But like Mercari, I've heard good things about Mercari.
Okay. Yeah. I know that's another marketplace. I've never bought anything
Facebook
from
Marketplace, obviously.
I've gotten so many amazing things from Facebook Marketplace.
I just like whatever I will do whatever I can to not buy something new.
Yes.
Like there's just I've always felt like there's just already enough stuff out in the
Yes.
world like
Yeah.
for everybody to like get what they need. Like we don't need to
Mhm.
be like creating new stuff, especially until they figure out like a more sustainable and like
Mhm.
economic, like
Yeah,
something better for our
agreed.
economy to do it. But
It really short circuits my mom's brain whenever I tell her, she's asking for a Christmas list and it has like 4 things on it, or like 4 things and then some books or, whatever. And she's always like, "What do you want though? Don't you want like more?" And I just keep telling her like, "I don't want stuff. Like I have enough stuff. Like stuff is really fun, but I have lots of unnecessary stuff that I love, and I have all the necessary stuff that I need." So I don't know if it's because she, came to adulthood in the 80s where like greed was good, and that emphasis on like personal accomplishment and making as much money as you can and, yada, yada. If kind of like what you were saying, that like signaling of wealth and whatnot is maybe more important to that generation. But I just find it so interesting that like she is horrified. And yet I'll show her things and she'll say like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cute," or like, "Oh, I can't believe you found that at Goodwill." What? Um, I'm trying to rub off on her, is what I'm saying.
that's good. Oh, I forgot we didn't. Oh, well, you mentioned it once, but free cycle groups too online are
Yeah,
just like the greatest thing
they
to get
really
rid of
are.
things that like maybe you don't have time to go like drop it
Yeah.
off at a bunch of places or like someplace wouldn't take it because it maybe
Mhm.
needs a little bit of work or
Mhm.
whatever. Like, and I've given so much stuff away on free
Oh my
cycle.
gosh, yeah.
Um, and then I've gotten so much really great stuff. Like,
Yeah.
and even like I had a lamp that I couldn't figure out how to make it wasn't working anymore.
Mm.
And this sweet lady on there who like, you have regulars
Yeah.
in the group. She just messaged me and said, I think I could fix this. You've been so generous giving away items. I would love to come. And it was during COVID, I
Oh
think.
my
So
gosh.
we were just like, I brought the lamp onto my front porch.
Yeah.
And she just like did some kind of whatever and like fixed the lamp for me.
Little sweet angel
Yeah,
baby. Oh
it
my
was really
gosh.
precious.
Like, and what a nice sense of community that you get from that
Very, yeah. And I
too.
think, yeah, that community is like so important and like that sharing resources type of stuff that you were talking
Yeah.
about too. So for the holidays specifically, a
Mhm.
couple of tips that I found. Uh, Maybe passing on like adult stockings that are often filled. Feel like for the holidays, there's a lot of filler gifts. Like
Yes.
you feel like you need to like my one of my family members had like a specific limit for dollar amount for each of their kids.
Mhm.
And so she would just keep buying stuff until she hit that limit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was
The
just like,
phenomenon of like, oh, if I have an empty cabinet, I need to fill it. Yeah.
yeah. So it was just like so much like more stuff than the kids could ever use, but also just like she
Mhm.
was just sort of like, I just have to have a lot to have
Yeah.
under the tree.
Sure.
Um, And then you can use stockings as a way to not use wrapping paper, but you
Yeah.
could also use newspaper, grocery bags, cloth napkins, or
Mhm.
reuse. I have like a whole bunch of bags that I reuse. I pretty rarely use wrapping paper.
Mhm.
I'll just reuse bags and
Yeah.
tissue paper and bows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but regular and glossy wrapping paper is recyclable unless it has non-paper additives like metallic flakes,
Yeah.
colored shapes, glitter, and plastics.
Oh, there's a hard no glitter rule in this house to
Yeah.
begin with. Not because, I mean, yes, also because of the sustainability aspect, but it just gets everywhere, girl. You can't. I'll find
And
it 6 years later.
yes. Same with greeting cards and envelopes. So if
Mhm.
they're just paper, they can be recycled. But if they have a little bit of that glitter on them or whatever, or photo paper, they can't be recycled.
I will say for things like greeting cards, something that I thought was really neat, and this relates to our free cycle thing too. One of the things I really like about free cycle is that it's a great place for like little things that don't like necessarily you wouldn't donate to like a Goodwill or to a charity. Like for example, a bunch of bows. I've done that before where I have somehow or another, oh no, I know what it was. I was a weirdo at Christmas and was picking everyone's bows out of the trash when we were unwrapping gifts. I was taking all the bows and I was taking all the tissue paper to reuse. And I actually even took all of the wrapping paper too, because I use it to stuff things. Wrapping paper is a little bit stiffer than most normal paper, so it's great for like package stuffing too. But I had all these bows, and so I wouldn't normally donate a bag of bows to Goodwill, but I put it on free cycle, and someone was so pumped to have them. So
Totally.
yeah, free cycle is such a great resource for things like that too. And I like, again, that like this notion of joy and sustainability, like, when you are able to give something like that to a teacher or to a community leader or what have you, like they're so pumped, and then you feel pumped, and like it's just such a nice little cycle.
Yeah, I mean, kind of related. So focusing gift giving more on like experiences and
Yeah.
connection,
Mm-hmm.
like ways that you can connect.
Yes.
Something that can be used like either like food
Mm-hmm.
or an experience or a book, or a puzzle is something about like creating a shared moment
Yeah.
together, or connecting a family, like
Mhm.
a game or something like that, rather than just like
Yeah.
stuff that maybe like is going
Mhm.
to get thrown out or
Yeah. Well, and
um,
it's always dicey to like try to pick a gift for someone. Like there's always that little bit of a gamble of like, oh, are they going to like this, or is this just going to be more work for them to get rid of it somehow?
mhm.
You won't even have to worry about it if you if you focus on experiences.
Yes. And looking at faith communities, like that can be a gathering place where people can kind of organize time to like craft handmade gifts or like share
Yeah.
those resources. Like everybody can bring their like crafting stuff and everybody can just do like a big card session for like
Yeah.
people at assisted living facilities or yeah. So those are some ideas just specifically for the holiday season to kind of reduce a little bit of waste because it is just I feel like even I get caught up in that too, especially for
For
family
sure.
members who maybe don't love they're not going to want something secondhand exactly like and
Mhm.
it's funny cuz like I have like a certain set of nieces that would be fine with so like I get them books every
Yeah.
year and I used to have just like a constant flow of second
Yeah.
books when we volunteered at the library. Um, but then I have this other set of nieces who are like, they're of the sister who needs everything to be brand new.
Ah, okay.
And so I tend to cave and like just like do a free for all, like,
Mhm.
spending, getting them something like brand new that
Sure.
there's on their list or whatever.
Sure.
Again, it's just sort of like what small changes work for you for your
Mhm.
situation and just
Yeah.
some things to think about and just kind of having some of these kind of conversations because this is why I thought came up with the eco chats is because this is how like sharing idea like when you told me about the whole thing about Tide like just
Yeah.
sharing the information and here's what worked for me this is what I'm doing now like
Mhm.
well thank you so much for joining me this was so fun.
Yeah.
And you're always you inspire me. And so hopefully you spread it out, spread the wealth.
I hope so. I hope I make it seem fun and like pretty easy to like people who aren't drawn to this topic naturally, like some of my coworkers or folks my mom's age. Like, yeah, there's a lot of fun and satisfaction. Like you're
Mhm.
going to look at those leggings every time you put them on. They're going to be that much more comfortable because they were $1.29. You're always going to
Mhm.
remember that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hayley.
Thank you. You're awesome. Bye.